everybody. You're listening to Capital Placements Career Growth Podcast. I'm your host, Kalis, and today we're going to be talking about a very relatable topic, and it's preparing for interviews. Anyone who's ever had to attend a job interview would understand the pressure that comes with it, the stress, and even some anxiety. There's some people who've really conquered job interviews, and I always felt like just a little bit envious of them because they're like, how do you walk into a room full of, you know, potentially like full of strangers that you've never met before and sit down and just sort of like prove that you're valuable and promote yourself, sell yourself, and convince them to hire you. That just feels very nerve wracking. But it turns out that the secret to this is, employing a good technique, a good strategy, and preparing and doing research. It's quite simple when you say it like that, but there's a lot more to it. And here to enlighten us on this topic is both of my colleagues, Kit and Nan. Thank you so much for joining us today. And just to give our audience a little bit of an introduction, let's start with Kit. Would you like to go first?
Sure. Hi, Kaylis. Hi, Nan. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast today. Sure. So, just to introduce myself very briefly, I am the head of recruitment for Capital Placement and also a certified career coach. Over the past 3 years, I've helped over 3,000 students or recent graduates secure internships, international internships, and I've worked in various industries over the past 10 years. So that's a little bit about me. And I do consider myself a yogi, something I do like to practice during my downtime. And I'm also a nature lover, so you will find me sitting in a corner by nature, enjoying nature, and reading a good book during my spare time. Yeah.
That's wonderful. And I feel like being a yogi would give you a lot of vital tools to help you manage your stress and anxiety, wouldn't it?
Absolutely, Kalis. I think we are living in a very, very fast paced world today, and it's very crucial that we all find things that could ground ourselves, to come back to ourselves. And yoga for me has been one of those things where I find myself and absolutely has helped me get through stressful days.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think I can attest to that as well. You'd usually, when you hear this, you'd think, "Oh yeah, sure, yoga will fix everything," but that's not the case. It's all about learning control, learning how to breathe well, making sure your blood circulates well, and all these benefits of it, which is pretty cool, and it's a pretty handy hobby as well. So, Nan, how about you? Do you have any hobbies as well?
Hey, Gators and Kid. I actually do. My hobbies lie in music. I am an occasional wedding singer, and I also love just doing a bit of songwriting, as well as putting, outfits together when it comes to fashion. I'm just visiting thrift stores. So I guess I'm able to, express my creativity when it comes to those two things. But yeah, those are my
That's
top two.
wonderful. See, that's a lot of creativity packed in there. Does it translate into your job role, your current job role?
In a way, I guess it does, especially when it comes to music. I feel like it's something that a lot of people tend to relate to. But yeah, so it's just one of those common denominators, especially when engaging with young, early, talent graduates. But yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Kit and Nan. Let's talk a little bit more about preparation for job interviews. As we all know, as we mentioned before, it can be pretty stressful, but it's an important stage of the job hunt process. So, why do employers or recruiters conduct the interviews before hires in the first place? What are they looking for during the interview? Nan, what insights could you give us into this?
It's a really great question. So, just based off my experience in recruitment and talent acquisition within the graduate space, obviously, when you're applying for a role, it has captivated your attention, right? As a candidate. And the fact that you have compiled a cover letter and resume and you are able to go through the interviewing process, you've actually earned yourself, that opportunity to engage with the interviewer because they see potential in you. They've seen your education, your training, and experience, and obviously that makes you as an attractive, candidate. So that's one of the first key things that really grabs the attention of the interviewer. And the second part would be obviously it leads you to the interviewing process, where you're able to now meet the interviewer, right? Whether it could be, face or individual, or group or panel interview. There are specific things that as interviewers, recruiters, hiring managers look for, in candidates to help us, determine your ultimate suitability to fill in an open position. So it's really important for us to be able to narrow our search and just to find out whether is this a compatible candidate for the role that we're looking for. But I also want to elaborate, some of the few things that interviewers, do look for
Of
when it
course.
comes to interviews, such as, and obviously these are the basic things, but they're so pivotal, and often we tend to overlook them or we don't really ponder on them. So it could be, looking at body language, because obviously first impressions do count. And you obviously want to ensure whether it's a in-person or virtual interview that you are presentable, but also the fact that you are, prepared for the interview, you are, present. So those are key things where you need to be mindful of just maintaining that eye contact, ensuring that okay, you have great lighting, and it's simple things, but obviously they count in your favor, right? And also
Absolutely.
just having that openness to new approaches. So your potential, employer may be, impressed by your past performances, right? Because obviously your CV you both volume and obviously they wanted to engage with you. But now they also want to know that you're open to trying new ways of doing things. And this is the opportunity for you to communicate, the fact that you are flexible in your way of thinking and you're willing to try new approaches and just find new solutions as well. So those are one of the key things that, as interviewers will look for, just preparation, how confident you are, how you carry yourself, your motivation, passion, whether you're self-aware. Another great thing to keep in mind is when you're having that interview with the employer, don't be shy to share your success stories. It doesn't really matter whether you don't have any work experience. You can talk about your involvement. When you were volunteering, or maybe you were involved in some society on campus. That's something that you can definitely share. In the interview. And then my last one would be just staying, inquisitive, be curious, have your questions written down, ahead of your interview, just to show interest as well that you really want this role and that you are prepared. And obviously, you want to ensure that this is the right fit as employer for you with where you're at within your career. So as much as yes, the interviewer is, interviewing you, but you also as a candidate, you're interviewing them. So it's a two-way, conversation of just ensuring that, this is the right match for you, and also as an employer that you are the right match for them as a candidate.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's a two-way conversation. A lot of
Yeah.
people approach interviews thinking it's one way,
Yeah.
and they miss out on a lot of benefits of actually asking questions from the recruiters, from your employers, from whoever's conducting the interview, because it could really, because as much as the company wants you to fit in with their needs, you need to
Hmm.
ensure that this company fits your needs, and this could
Exactly.
be
Yeah.
a great opportunity to do so. But just to give them some context, would you all have any recommendations, like some questions that they could write down and take with them? Any examples that we could give them?
Absolutely. I think on my side, it would be when it comes to questions, obviously you want to understand the role in depth and just to ensure whether it's the right, suitable role for you. So do ask, questions pertaining to the role, but also ask questions about the company, just to understand their vision, their mission, their values. Also, you can, probe more on why, why is this vision, vacant? Is this the first time, or are they, rehiring, another candidate for the role? Also, you can ask, how does this role fuel the company's overall success? So, how are you as a candidate able to actually contribute, to the success of the company? And also, what, immediate challenges and opportunities await for the candidate that fulfills that role. Kit, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add to that.
Yeah, that was a great, yeah, those were great recommendations, Dan. Just to kind of piggyback on what Nan said, I would just
Oh,
add
please,
by
please.
by saying that, yeah, I think what's important is for you to understand the company's long term goals or even immediate goals
Mm,
that they wish to accomplish and how you can align yourself to those. It shows that you are genuinely interested in the growth of the company. That's one of the things that would make you stand out through your questions as well. Because one way an interviewer would assess a candidate is by the questions that the candidate asks during the interview. Also, I think to show that you are inquisitive and eager to learn, you could also ask questions around what the company culture looks like, or what does a day at company A look like. So those are some of the inquisitive and eager questions you could ask from the interviewer
mm,
as well. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And I also think that when we are asking them questions, I feel like it would be really helpful if we could personalize it a little bit more to show that we've done
yeah.
some research into the company as well. What are your thoughts on that? Would you recommend, like putting in a few like company specific questions? For example, oh, last year I heard that, this company have made 300% profit.
Mm,
These kinds of questions to make sure that you're kind of tuned in to to what the
yeah.
company's been up to. Do
Yeah,
you
no,
agree with that?
absolutely.
Do you think it's like it's a bit too much?
No, it is a really great way just to personalize, the questions, and just to also showcase the fact that you have done in-depth research on the company, that you understand, their business model, their history, where they're at, in terms of financial health as a business. So the more, research that you do on the organization or company, the better chances you have, just because they see a candidate who's actually gone above and beyond and is really, is really driven to really get this role. So I think you actually score really great. You get some brownie points, for that. So don't shy away from, showcasing the fact that you have, done extensive research on their, employer.
Yes. And we also do recommend that the candidates tailor their responses as much as they tailor their questions.
Mm.
So why do we recommend it though? Why is tailoring your interview responses helpful? Kit, how what are the benefits of tailoring interview responses to different formats? Why do we recommend it?
Yes, Kailash. I think I would like to answer this question from two angles, one as an interviewer and one um, from a candidate's or an interviewee's perspective. So, as an interviewer, when we prepare for interviews, we categorize the questions that we ask from candidates or the interviewee. We would be asking questions that to assess someone's soft skills, hard skills. We will ask questions that are behavioral, situational, competency based. So it's the reason why we are categorizing these questions is because we want to assess the candidate on different areas. Things like attitude and personality, their academic background, what transferable skills they bring from work experience, internships, or volunteering, community involvement. So, when it comes to an interviewee answering these questions, it's important that they take a moment to first assess what kind of question am I being asked. Is this a situational question? Is Am I being asked a behavioral question? If it's a situational question, we are trying to understand if this person can think on their feet. if they are put in the spot or if they are thrown in the deep end. These things can always happen at a workplace. So, how well will they handle a situation like this? A behavioral question would be to understand that person's attitude and personality, how they would act on a given situation. A competency based interview question would be to understand if they have the technical knowledge and skills, or the soft skills and the hard skills required to perform in that given role. So it's important for a candidate to first understand the type of question and then tailor their answers accordingly. It's also showing the interviewer that you are someone who is flexible and adaptable. You can adapt yourself to situations or scenarios when you tailor your answers. It also shows that you have taken a moment to really understand the question. You're not responding, or you're not answering as a reactive person, but you're really answering with the intention of fully responding, giving a complete answer to the interviewer. It would also show that you have a way of structuring your answers as well. So, these are some of the reasons why it's super important that you provide um, tailored answers to the interviewer.
Absolutely. And it's really interesting to hear what goes on in the mind of the person doing the interviewing,
Yeah,
because there's a lot of psychology involved in there. You wouldn't think, hey, I'm just going to ask this person what they would do if they were jumping off a plane and,
yeah,
the parachute didn't come out. And I
yeah.
think that was like a pretty, it's a like, oh, sorry, let me repeat that. There seems to be quite a bit of noise over here. So that is actually a question that we've discussed amongst ourselves here as well. Talk a little bit more about what we would do if we jumped out of a plane and our parachute didn't work. How calmly we'd approach the situation, or whether we just give up and be like, "I time to face my doom. This is it." But it's quite interesting that it leads to these kinds of insights as to who that candidate is. And one thing that I would also like to explore a little bit more is, personally, between all the different formats, what is your personal favorite? What do you think is the type of interview question that you can answer well, and why? Kit, would you like to go first?
Yeah, so would you like me to give you an example of an interview question and how it could be well
Yeah.
structured?
Yes, that would be great.
Okay. Okay, sure. So I think one of my most commonly asked interview questions, I think Nan would agree with this as well. Nan has done many
Mhm.
interviews. We've interviewed together many times on many occasions.
Yeah.
Is tell us about a time where you had to deal with a difficult team member when you were working on a group project. So, how would you kind of first approach that question? First of all, that question would be it's a situational question, but also a behavioral question, because we are trying to understand how that person would behave in that given situation. So, my favorite method of approaching such a question would be using the STAR method. I think this is one of the most popular methods of answering a question and giving a well structured answer. So, what you want to first do is explain the situation. If you're going to give an example of an instance where you've had to work with a difficult team member, you want to kind of give some context to what that situation was. And then once you kind of give a good understanding to the interviewer as to what the situation is, you want to then follow up by giving kind of what tasks were at hand, and then what actions did you take to ensure that you turned around that situation, and what was the outcome. For example, it could be the task would have been something along the lines of meeting a particular deadline, but having to work with a difficult project team member. So, what actions did you take to address the situation? and what were the outcomes of at the end when you handle the situation. So I would approach a situation like that using the star method.
The star method is super duper helpful. We also have a blog breaking down how you could use star methods for different questions and how you could approach it and structure your answer better on our website as well. And if you just like, if anyone reads through it, it's easy to see why it's super duper helpful. I think one of the biggest issues with these interview questions is you walk in, you don't really know what to prepare for. You just prepare yourself to answer the question. You just brace yourself and you walk in and they throw something like, okay, you can only save this one endangered elephant or your family, which would you choose? Right? So
Hmm.
you
Yeah,
never know what kind of questions you might be facing. In
exactly.
that kind of a situation, like, it helps you really organize your thoughts, doesn't it?
Yeah,
It's like
yeah. And I
super
think
helpful.
just to add to that, Kales, I think we also need to understand when you are sitting at an interview, the
Yeah.
interviewer is also a human on the other end trying to get to know you as a person. So also I would say when you are structuring and approaching an answer, you want to match the interviewer's vibe. If it's an interview panel, you want to sort of match their energy, their vibe when you are responding with your interview questions. That for me, I think Nan would agree with this as well. We've come across many instances where candidates have been turned down by employers because they didn't sound
Mm.
enthusiastic enough, or um, they were not matching up to the energy level in that environment on that call.
I can see why
Yeah.
that would be a problem, right? In situations like if you're not showing enthusiasm, but it feels like the interviewer is doing all the work, trying to bring some
Mm.
positive, bubbly
Yes.
energy to the table, it's going to be exhausting.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's going to look bad on the candidate. But then that also raises another question. I feel like I would like to direct this to Nan. It also raises another question, which is like, okay, for example, this hypothetical situation. There
Hmm.
is a company full of very extroverted, bubbly people who are like super energetic and sporty. And then they have a very talented, keen individual who comes in, but they're more introverted and, a little bit quieter. They prefer like indoor activities and so on. But skill wise, they're pretty great. Attitude wise, they're pretty great. In this kind of situations, have what is the choice you see employers taking most frequently? Do you see the candidates getting rejected in such situations? Do you see them getting hired regardless of the mismatch in the vibes?
Oh man, that's a catch 22 kind of question, Curtis.
It's
I think it does
I've
depend. Yeah, it
yeah.
does depend on the employer and also like where they're at, as an organization, company. But I know that based off my experience, they usually want to, hire um, a candidate who's able to bring something different to the team dynamics. So if obviously, a team consists of, many extroverted candidates or, colleagues, employees, they wouldn't shy away from actually bringing in, someone who's introverted just because they bring a different trait, they bring, a different dynamic to the team. And if it is a company that welcomes, individuality and just encourages, the team just to be themselves, no matter, whether they're introverted or extroverted, then it usually works, in everyone's favor, just because everyone's able to, collaborate and just to really, work as a team and just to meet each other, where they at. So it's usually not a problem, but then if it's a company that really just, wants everyone to be either introverted or extroverted, then unfortunately, it's really hard to actually bring someone of the opposite, personality or, character. But in my opinion, I feel having opposites, in a team works in everyone's, favor, in order to actually achieve, the desired goal, and that is to collaborate and just to bounce off ideas. So it shouldn't really matter, whether one is actually, quiet or loud. It's all about the skill sets that you bring to the table.
Yep. That is a very sweet and also very hopeful sentiment. And I would
Yeah.
say that it's good to have diversity in the team, because
Mm,
that's how you bring in fresh ideas. That's how you keep
yeah.
growing. That's a lot more sustainable than not allowing like different people from different backgrounds to partake in it. And it's not like
Hmm.
allowing per se, but like not actively, like actively promoting that. That would be more of an issue, I'd say.
Yeah.
But Kim, what about you? Do you agree with this? What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I feel like part of your question does touch based on the company culture as well, as to how
Mm,
one could align well to that company culture. And sort of for certain companies, certain things can be deal breakers, while for other companies, it may not be as much. And also, it can be based on the role. If it's a highly technical role where there is not much human interaction, having a person who's upbeat or energetic may not be a priority for that company. So they might be looking for someone that looks really, really good on paper, is having excellent technical competency to deliver that role. But on the other hand, if it's
mm,
like a marketing agency or a creative agency, that company, the company culture might be such that they definitely want people who are energetic, upbeat, out of the box thinkers. So it really varies on the company and the role as well, Kayla's.
I agree with that as well. 100%. Company culture is a bit of a subjective thing, because a company's culture, I feel like, even though at the very base of it, we have parameters for it, it grows and changes with the people over time. And suddenly, like, the company culture you had 3 4 years ago may not be the exact same one you have today either. So there's a bit of a, like, I think a prematurely sort of eliminating companies because you think, hey, maybe the company culture is not right for me. What do you mean I have to roll into work in a hamster ball every day? Okay, no. But if you if you give the option, it's a great option to have. Like, just go for
mm,
it, shoot your shot with your with the company, see if they like you or not. It does not always have to be like, oh, cultural fit, it's the number one most important thing. But people do actually worry about that. I've actually had conversations with friends and family members who just say, okay, but what if, we go to this because of differences in how we like to work. Some people like to work alone. Some
mm,
companies prefer everyone to be in their own offices, whereas others would prefer large tables and have everyone together. It's a very subjective, ever evolving thing. And it's really hard to just even do research on a company to determine whether you fit into that company culture or not. But you can determine quite a bit of information prior to attending an interview just by doing a touch of research. And
Mhm.
then, like, how can candidates conduct comprehensive research on a company before an interview, and how can this knowledge be effectively integrated into their responses?
mm. Well, this is my favorite question because I tend to feel like a lot of candidates that I've interviewed in the past, either they'll rock up to an interview and they're well prepared, and you can actually see, okay, this candidate has done extensive research, and they really are present, and they really showing interest in the role. And then you get some candidates who actually expect you to spoon feed them in the interview, and it doesn't look good at all, and it's usually like an immediate no, like you won't be proceeding with that profile to the next stage. And obviously it just yeah, it does them a huge disservice. But yeah, so when it comes to conducting comprehensive research on any company that you are interviewing for, preparation and knowledge are key factors throughout the hiring process, just because they allow you to demonstrate your ability to successfully, fill the position you're applying for. So doing a fair amount of research about a company before your interview will definitely allow you to gain a better understanding of the employer's expectations, and craft, effective answers to each question that you're being asked. So when it comes to preparing for your interview, you should definitely devote time to learn some key details about the company, because you can actually, use the information to gather, your demonstration of understanding of the role of the company, and just your eligibility, throughout the hiring process. And then also, oftentimes, the knowledge and insight that you acquire or gain will also give you, a better understanding of the type of candidate you're looking for. And also, as I mentioned, it will allow you to craft your, thoughtful questions and just also highlight your interest and, commitment. And then in addition to this, I do want to emphasize that when it comes to conducting research, as mentioned earlier on, look at the company's, website, their history, how did it actually all begin? What year, it's things that, they can be the nitty-gritty information, but it's still important. Just because you may be asked in the interview, the chances are quite slim, but you may be asked that question. So it's just better to know when was the company founded, who are the founders, the business model, be really confident when it comes to understanding the business model, how it actually functions, just the mission, the values of the company. Do they align, with your values and goals with where you're
Absolutely.
at in your career? Also, just do your research when it comes to the field and the competitors. Just because when you go in to any interview, you want to be aware of the fact that, okay, should I get this role? These are the competitors that I should be looking out for. So you want to be clued up. And also, just check the reviews either on Glassdoor and other employee sites for reviews because you want to also know, and just get an idea of how the company culture is like. As much as, yes, you may not get the full picture, but it's always great, just to have those glimpses, just based off, people who are currently working inside the company or have worked, in the company in the past. And also when it comes to, and there's something that a lot of candidates are not aware of and they don't really tend to think about, but don't shy away to actually, finding out more information about the interviewers. So if you can, that just take the liberty to find out who will be interviewing you. Look them up on LinkedIn, see what they have been involved in, look at their career path, because that's something that you can always talk about in the interview. So yeah, I guess just to summarize all that I've said would be just to visit the company's website, look at the company's, financial health, as mentioned earlier on, understand, their mission, their goals, look, through their social media, by them you're able to see what have been their recent, projects, initiatives that they've actually been involved in, what are they working towards, as a company. So I spent a lot of time on the social media platforms. LinkedIn, definitely. Spent a lot of time there as well. But yeah, so I think those are, the gist of places as to where you should focus on when it comes to conducting that comprehensive, research on the company.
Exactly. There's lots because the internet is free and every
Exactly.
company has a pretty significant exactly like there's a pretty significant online presence,
Yeah.
especially after COVID. Like even like small businesses I know personally who were not like very active on social media started promoting because that was the only way to make things work. But they soon
Hmm.
realized just how important it is because you put so much of yourself and your company out there online as well when you do that. And there's a lot you can glean from doing this research, checking, looking at the buzzwords on their job postings and their website, trying to figure out what kind of people they're, what they're looking for. But how much help is this research when it comes to skillfully answering tough interview questions? And the tough
Mhm.
ones are very tricky because you can't immediately say it's not a very one-dimensional surface level question. It often goes deeper, and the motivation behind these questions is only known to the interviewer. So the interviewee has to work in a bit, a bit blind. But if they know how to address these questions skillfully, I think that would be super helpful to them. A kid, for example, right? When they ask questions that seem like they're looking for your weaknesses. and you feel tempted to either say something like, "Oh yeah, I'm a perfectionist." Uh, yes, we heard that in 2012. Please bring us a new weakness. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, 2012 call. It wants its weakness back, right? But you get what I'm saying. But
Yeah.
now they ask something different. Now they ask like, now we ask things like, oh, so what is the critical feedback that you recently received? What was the
Yeah.
most critical feedback that you received? And then people will be like, oh, my supervisor said I'm the laziest person on earth, and then I don't like dogs, so they were like, wow, you
Oh
don't like
man.
dogs. So like, how do we avoid this situation? Kid, please help.
Yeah, sure. I really like this question. Actually, I want to share a little secret as an interviewer. I do like asking
Ooh,
trick questions and complicated questions. I'm not saying all my interview questions are like that, but I like throwing in a couple of them on my interviews. Let me tell
okay,
you
clearly heads
why.
up for everyone. Kid's going to interview. I just need to throw this out there. Listen very carefully to what she has to say.
Oh
Please.
gosh. Well, I mean, it does come with a lot of empathy, I must say. My intention is not to put the interviewee in trouble by all means, but the question itself is a problem. I want to see how they solve the problem. It's almost like I want to see how they detangle it. If you get what I mean. So, um, for I mean,
Yeah.
it's very normal to be asked complex and like difficult interview questions where you feel like, wait, whoa, I don't think I understand anything in this. Like, there's so many difficult words and it's a very long sentence, and I'm not sure which part of it I understood. Well, the key to it is first accepting that it is a difficult question, and it's very normal for interviewers to ask you a couple of difficult questions. The key is acceptance in all situations, I think. And what you don't want,
Yeah.
what you don't want to do is get into negative self-talk, thinking, "Oh my God, I think I'm incapable of answering this question." You should never put yourself in that place because an interviewer will immediately pick up that vibe. They will immediately know that your confidence level has dropped. Um, the goal is first to fully accept that
Exactly.
this is a difficult question and accept it. And then I would say buy time. I mean, if you don't understand the question fully, I would ask something like, "Oh, that's an interesting question. If I understood you correctly, you are asking for X, Y, and Z." And then it's a counter question to get further clarity and also buy more time so you can process while the interview is further clarifying the question for you. So that's one way to approach
Hmm.
a trick or difficult question. And in all honesty, Kayla, we are not expecting a right or wrong answer. There's no right or wrong answer to some of these questions we ask, as complicated as they sound. It's about how you
Yeah.
approach the question. One of the biggest, like the greatest examples I could use is in the consulting field. The hiring process is very, very complex. So there are several rounds or stages to the recruitment process in the consulting field. There is something called market size questions that candidates get asked on their interview rounds. They can either take the top down approach or a bottom up approach. Depending on the question, and it's a situational question. It could be something like, in New York City, how would you give an estimate of how many light bulbs or street lights are there in the city of New York? If you were working as a consultant, you're supposed to give an estimate. Now, the easiest answer to that is, well, why don't we just Google it? That's not the right answer. What we care is how you approach. It's a
Uh-uh.
much more complex kind of thing. It sounds easy, but it's a lot more complex than that. And we really don't care about how, like, the exact number you come up with for an estimate of the number of street bulbs in New York City. It's more about how you approach that question. You can come up with hypothetical responses to certain questions which are very complex. um, And also, if you don't have work experience or an academic background that's directly related to that question for you to answer, you don't have expertise, you can give hypothetical answers. And then what you really want to demonstrate on these kinds of questions is how good you are at problem solving. And one of the best ways to just kind of be accustomed or mentally ready for these types of questions, you can't really predict what the question is, but you can always be mentally prepared for these by practicing. There's no way around, or there's no shortcut to that, I would say. Practicing, you can Google difficult or complex situational questions, and then practice and practice and practice until you build confidence where you feel like, I'm ready to answer any kind of question now.
Except for the one about the street lamps. That's the one. That's the problem. That is not the right answer, y'all. Do not Google. Okay? Trust me, I tried it and it did not yield any results that will help me in this situation. Okay? Um but on the flip side, what would you do if someone came and very confidently stated the exact number of street lamps? Now,
Yeah.
is the onus on them to prove it, or is the onus on y'all because y'all just asked the question? Prove it.
If someone, I would be very happy that that person gave a very confident answer, but I would be asking a counter question, asking, how did you get to that number? Walk me through how you got to that
Yeah.
number.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
googled it. I googled it.
Wrong answer.
But hey, I guess Kit won't be hiring me. I guess I'm at the bottom of your hiring list, Kit. But at least I knew the number of street lamps in New York, and I think that's worth it. But
Yeah,
interestingly enough, like we find it okay when you are like when a candidate is confident.
yeah,
It bodes well for them, especially in a people facing role. But the truth is that there's also something called overconfidence.
yeah.
That's a bit of a problem. But how do you draw the line between overconfidence and being just regular confident? Do you all recall any instances where someone was just super overconfident in an interview and it came off badly? Was there ever a situation like that?
Oh no. I need some time
Oh,
to think on
yes.
this one.
Don't worry. Take your time.
Mm,
While Nan is, while Nan kind of responds to this, I want to say, I think the cause behind a person being overconfident could stem from a certain
Yeah.
insecurity that they have. And as interviewers, we are trying to, as much as we try to avoid the word judging or reading a person, that's what we are trying to do during these interviews
mm,
when we speak to people. It's one human trying to understand the other human, if you really put it in a plain and simple way. So
Hmm.
when a person is overconfident, it's only showing that this person is trying to cover up something that's not true or authentic to themselves. So they're trying
mm,
to not be themselves. So we would continuously ask, it's only going to make it more difficult for them from that point on, because we are going to try and
yeah.
ask more and more questions to really dig into who they are.
Mm,
I've come across instances where I've asked so many follow-up questions from overconfident candidates to the point where they feel exhausted. It's mentally exhausting when you are not yourself, and when you're constantly being
exactly. Yeah.
questioned to dig deeper, tell me more. It's going to mentally exhaust you, and it's going to reflect on your tone and your body language, how you respond to the questions. So
Mm,
I would highly recommend
Absolutely.
that, yeah, one
Mhm.
does not do that. Um, yeah, because it's only going to kind of, you're going to start digging your own hole if you do that. Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. You'll have to put on a
Yeah, no, I agree.
permanent like a permanent like face on
Yeah.
exuding confidence, and
Yes.
then
Mm.
next thing you know, you're hosting a podcast which you have no idea how you got here. I'm kidding, but
We've
be
all
yourselves
been
in the
there.
interviews, people.
Yes, be yourself.
Be yourself, trust
Yeah, yeah.
us.
Yeah.
if it's like, again, just wanted to like add this in. It's that we spoke about how it's a two-way sort of conversation, right? And
Mm,
as much as the company needs someone who fits what they're looking for, you need a company that fits what you're looking for. And if
exactly.
you
Yeah.
have to hide who you are 24/7, then maybe the company is not right for you, because it's
Mm,
going to
Yeah.
yeah.
exhaust you and drain you, and you're going to feel burnt out. Right.
Yeah. You're spot on. You're spot on about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
How about you?
absolutely.
Like, you had an idea, like you had a story to share with us.
No, I was just trying to think of a time when I, had to interview a really overconfident candidate.
It does
For
not
me,
forget
obviously,
overconfidence.
for obviously you can tell like what,
Yeah.
sorry, Kit,
I
what
like it. I
Kit
love
has,
having quiche.
mentioned. Oh my goodness. But yeah, obviously, you can always tell when a candidate is insecure, and the more you dig, deeper, and you just trying to find out what exactly, is going on. They do get to a point where they are exhausted, and trying to keep up with this facade that they, um, showing, and when it comes to candidates like that, obviously you give them, the space just to be, but then the end, like I always want to be honest with them and providing feedback just so they are aware on how to work on that, moving forward, should they continue applying for any role, that it's something that, they can't overlook or avoid if they really want, to get to secure that job. So I think just
Yeah.
providing that feedback to them. Obviously,
Yeah.
you need to provide it in a way that is not being mean or, demeaning or whatsoever, but in a way that, that shows them like, hey, actually you do care about their career progression, and, all of this feedback is coming from a good place, for them. So I think it's a matter of having that conversation with them towards the end of the
Absolutely.
interview, and hopefully in that way they'll be able to help themselves moving forward, and how to, best prepare for the interview, and just try not to be overconfident, and just, um, be a bit humble. Be a bit humble at times, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Kendrick Lamar said it best. I will not repeat it on this podcast, but
What up? What did he say? Refresh our memories, please.
I can't say it. I can't say the words. Just Google it. Just Google Kendrick Lamar
Okay.
humble. It's a good song. But
Okay.
yeah, just a bit. We'll have to censor a couple of words when I say it.
Yeah,
But
figured.
yeah, the chorus. But actually, that was really helpful advice and really good insights. Thank you both, Kit and Nan. But I've got like one last question for you before we wrap up. So far, we've been providing a lot of insights into how to prepare and also a good way to approach questions and so on. Has anyone here had an experience where a candidate tried their own unique strategy and it did not go down well? Kit, how about you? Do you have any
Yeah, I think
stories that you'd like to
I
share?
do. I do have. Actually, this happened to one of my colleagues who was doing an interview. She was interviewing a candidate, and it
Yeah.
was for it was a technical question that she asked for. This candidate was looking to get into a cybersecurity internship. So my colleague asked what a firewall is, and the answer, without even thinking twice, the candidate ended up saying it's a wall built to put out fire.
I've heard about this one.
Yeah, I think it was extremely difficult for my colleague to contain her like laugh because um yeah, so it was, yeah, it's definitely something we will never forget. But
Oh man.
yeah, what is a firewall? Well, a
Huh.
firewall is a wall you put up to put like to avoid fires. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So
You literally took it literally. That's amazing.
yeah, So I feel like
Wow.
sometimes
I
candidates.
think yeah.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Kayla. Sorry. Yeah.
No, no. I was just trying to say that it is literally a wall that they put up to prevent fire spreading. But why do I feel like, okay, just to prove that inkling, I just googled it real quick, and yes, that is the exact definition as well. So I'm just thinking, bros, fams, everyone out there, do not Google. Kit told you not to Google. This is why. We just collectively proved Kit right. Do not Google.
Well, I
Yeah, yeah.
don't
Sorry,
think
Kit.
Google
Please.
will be happy with that. But if you
Okay,
want to
we
Google
got to cut
answers
that out.
be like, yeah, we'll have to use credible sources if you really want to. I think,
Mm,
you know, if you want, like, I'm not going to name names for certain websites, but you want to use credible sources if you really want to, Google answers. But I don't recommend Googling answers during an interview. One should never do
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
You might as well
Mm,
be honest and say, "I'm sorry, I don't think I have a straight answer to a question, or I don't have the knowledge to answer this question."
mm,
Yeah, you could be honest rather than we've come across. I've interviewed candidates where I've heard them typing very, very loud keyboard,
yeah.
yeah.
and
Yes.
that does not look good.
Yes,
Yeah. So do not use the
That
strategy
doesn't
of
at
yes,
all.
typing interview questions while you're on
yes,
on the interview.
yes.
Yeah.
What can they do instead? Like, can we give? Let's help people out. Let's help people out. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's say a candidate has just been asked to define what a firewall is, and they're applying for a cybersecurity internship.
Mm.
How
Mm.
can they, without walking away from the interview looking, like they messed up, how can they approach that question? How can they tackle it and not derail it or Google it?
So I was just thinking, when it comes to questions like that, it's okay not to have the answer, like the correct answer, right? But in the same breath, you can actually, inform the interviewer, like right now, you don't have the correct answer. However, you would like to do, research and, and get back to them. As interviewers, we tend to appreciate that, the fact that you are willing to actually go and find, do more research and get back to us. And I've had candidates who've actually done that. And it usually, works in their favor because it goes to show that, okay, this is a candidate who's actually, willing just to, sit there and be like, okay, I don't know. And that's it. It's like, yes, right now I can actually let you know that I do not know the answer. However, I will definitely go and do extensive research and find, the answer. And then I will be able to, let you know. But
Yeah,
I think, yeah, I don't know, Kit, is there any other ways they could
No, I
answer?
love your answer, Nan. I really, really like the answer that you gave. And I just
yeah,
remembered that there were some candidates who gave the exact answer that you just gave. And they would
Mm,
email us saying, to answer the question I could not answer during the interview, I did some research, I did some
mm,
reading, and these are the answers that I found. It really shows that you're willing to learn something new. It's more important to show that
yes,
you're willing to learn
yeah,
than to pretend that you know something
yes,
that you really don't. So you
exactly,
can
yeah.
really, yeah,
yes.
turn the situation into something really positive. Yeah.
Mm.
100%. Yeah,
Exactly, exactly.
it's okay to, like, because it's not asking whether you know how to build a firewall. You're just asking
Mm.
definition. You could always say, well, actually, I'm not sure, but I would, like, you just show them that you're willing to learn, and also own up to the
Mm.
fact that you don't know something. That's
Yeah.
wonderful, because that also
Exactly.
means you're not going to just sit there and, like, if you don't know something, if you encounter a burden at work, it shows that you will be open about it instead of, like, hiding that, withholding that,
Mm.
and you will be able to
Yeah,
seek help and improve yourself, which is pretty great, I think. So
I agree.
honesty is helpful.
Yeah. And it also
Yep.
just, shows that you are taking initiative and you are being proactive. And those are
Yes,
really, great traits to have for any
yes,
role, no matter where you're at in your career. If you're someone
yes,
who's willing, just to take initiative and being proactive, then obviously it does, count in your favor to in joining, the potential company and team.
100%. And on that note, this concludes our conversation for today. I'm a little bummed because I feel like there's so much more we could actually talk about. But thank you so much, Kit
Yeah.
and Nan, for all the insights. Super, super helpful. And thank you so much for joining us today.